Look, I know you're tired of knocking. You spent years trying to open the doors that just won't budge. The career that never took off, the relationship that fell apart, the big break that vanished. But they remain closed. Let's get into why. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from pounding on the door that has no intention of opening. You've done the math, you've put in the days, and you decide that silence on the other side is a sign that he has turned his back. You call it a cosmic no. But you are judging the architect by the wood of the door rather than the safety of the house. To you, a no feels like a punishment. To God, a no is a rescue mission. Human ambition is often blind. We pray for keys to rooms we aren't equipped to survive. We scream for the entry into opportunities that carry a toxicity we cannot yet smell. You say a breakthrough, he sees a breakdown. You say a soulmate, he sees a cage. You say a dream, he sees a disaster that will cost you your soul before you even finish your first year. The truth is, you're banging on a door that leads to your own suffocation. You're obsessed with a dream that is actually a gilded cage, and you're cursing the very hand that is holding the door shut to keep the poison away from your lungs. His silence isn't a lack of love, it's the ultimate protection. He isn't ignoring your knock, he is ignoring the catastrophe you're begging to walk into. He is willing to let you be angry, be confused, or let you feel rejected, as long as it keeps you alive. If that door clicked open when you demanded it, you wouldn't be celebrating. You'd spend your last breath wondering why no one stopped you from entering the room that was never meant for you. Trust the lock. The door is closed because the architect is busy building something you can actually handle. By the way, you're acting like a tenant who is terrified of losing their security deposit. You've spent months, maybe years, obsessing over a specific room. You've memorized the floor plan of that one career path, that one person's heart, and that one version of success. To you, that room is everything. It's the only place you'll feel safe. You're at the door begging for the keys, convinced if you don't get in, you'll be homeless. But here is the truth that should keep you awake tonight. You are trying to fit a cathedral-sized soul into a crawl space. You are banging on a door for broom closet, crying because the lock won't turn. Meanwhile, the architect is standing behind you, holding the blueprints for a palace. He isn't keeping the door closed to be cruel. He's keeping it closed because your wingspan is already wider than the room you're trying to enter. If he let you in, you'd have to clip your own spirit just to fit into the frame. He isn't denying you a home, he's refusing to let you live in a cage. Stop trying to negotiate for a seat at the table that was built for the people half your size. Stop praying for the keys to a life that would require you to be less than you are. The door isn't stuck, it's irrelevant. God doesn't build for your current comfort, he builds for the ultimate weight. And right now, you're too heavy for that little room. Turn around, the view is better from the balcony you haven't even noticed yet. Just as you start to accept that the old doors are staying shut, the soundtrack of your life drops out completely. Everything you've used to feel important, the pings on your phone, the random compliments, and the rush of being busy, suddenly goes silent. The notifications stop, the DMs stay empty. You're left in a dead zone. You've spent years addicted to the noise. You've been navigating your life by the sound of the crowd. But, newsflash, the crowd is just a mob of people who are just as lost as you are. You've been performing for others, begging for a good job from people who don't even know your middle name. The theater was cleared and the critics were sent home for one reason: to see what is left of you when there is no one left to clap. If your fire goes out the moment the spotlight moves, it wasn't a fire, it was just a neon sign. If the work stops the moment the lights do, you weren't building a life, you were building a stage. The silence is a gift, though it feels like a punishment. The instructions for your next act are being whispered, and you can't hear a whisper when you're busy checking your notifications. God made it lonely so you could finally see straight. He made it still so you'd stop shaking. What feels like a void is actually a sanctuary. It's the only place left where the architect can speak to the tenant without the world's interference. The noise was the distraction. The silence is the actual conversation. Once the room goes silent and the crowd leaves, the real work starts. And honestly, it's gonna leave some bruises. You probably feel like life is just using you for target practice. You are tired of the no's, you're bitter about the failures, and you're starting to wonder if God is just taking swings at you for fun. But you've got it backwards. You think you have been bitten, but you actually been carved. Think of it like this. You're currently a mismatch for a life you're begging for. You are carrying a desperate, thirsty kind of energy, an ego that is so hungry for a win that it would sabotage the victory the second it arrived. If you would have everything today, your ego would have driven that blessing straight off the cliff. God is breaking off the parts of you that are too brittle to handle the heavy lifting of a real destiny. This isn't character building just to be nice, it's a survival training. Success is a weight. If you aren't tough enough, you will shatter later under the pressure of the very dream you are praying for. This is the gift of disappointment. Every time you don't get what you want, you've been forced to drop a piece of the old you that wouldn't have survived the next level. God is breaking your pride today, so your pride doesn't wreck your future tomorrow. He is making you okay with being a nobody, just so when He makes you a somebody, you won't lose your mind in the process. The architect is breaking the person you think you are to make room for the one you were actually built to be. Now you've taken the hits, you've dropped the ego, you've done everything you've been asked, yet you're still standing at the hallway staring at a piece of wood that won't move. This is where most people break. This is the 1000-day rule, the brutal stretch of time where you're no longer being broken, but you are not yet being rewarded. Here is the reality. God is never late, but He is almost never early. You say a 1000-day struggle, He says a 1000-day calibration. You are staring at the lock, He is staring at your hands. If the door clicked open on day 500, you'd walked into a blessing that was too heavy for you to carry. You would have dropped it, ruined it, or let it ruin you. The door stays shut not because you aren't good enough, but because the version of you who can actually keep the win hasn't arrived at the door yet. The lock turns the exact second your strength matches the weight of what's on the other side. This is the transition from being okay in your niche to becoming untouchable. He's making you wait, so when the door finally swings wide, you don't just walk through it, you own the room. Stop staring at the handle, it turns the exact moment you stop needing it too. That's when you are ready. One day, you're just going to stop knocking. It won't be because you have given up, and it won't be because you are tired to keep going. You're going to stop because you finally realize that those closed doors weren't a tragedy, they were a redirection. The big secret is this: every no was a signpost pointing you back to yourself. You spent years begging for a seat at someone else's table, at that company, in that circle, under someone else's roof. But you weren't born to be a guest, you were born to be a creator. Those doors stayed locked because if you had found a home in those small, comfortable spaces, you never would have discovered your own power to produce something better. 5 years from now, you're going to look at this exact moment and thank God for every lock that didn't turn. You'll see that the struggle wasn't a prison sentence, it was a training. Those years of silence were the only way to get you to stop looking for permission and start looking for purpose. This is the final reveal. The doors didn't stay shut because you weren't good enough, they stayed shut because you were too big to fit inside. The closed door wasn't the end of your story, it was the moment you realized you were meant to build the whole thing yourself. Stop begging for a seat at their table. The door stayed closed so you'd finally realize you own the land. I hope this video was helpful today. It was Mary with you. Here on this channel we trust God's process and build for the centuries. I'll see you in the next one.